What is up, pal fam? Welcome to day 98 of Countdown to FIDE 100. I'd say this because it's gonna be a long game. What? Yeah. I've watched that game back in 2021, but we're gonna take a look at this. Before we begin, yesterday I told at the end of the Countdown to FIDE 100 covering the year 2020 that at the 2021 we're gonna cover the long World Championship match. The longest World Championship match ever in history. So we're gonna take a look at this because it's the most notable one. And yeah, we're gonna take a look. By the way, the year 2021 is full of like the world is slowly healing itself with the vaccines and opening just not much malls because not opening not much buildings and all the stuff, malls, supermarkets, department stores, and all the stuff, or maybe I'd say some of them. It's just slowly going back to normal thanks to the vaccine, to the COVID vaccine. So yeah, it was like crazy, and it was like very peaceful to go on a stroll when I was like in back in 2021, despite people and including me still wearing a mask and still nothing that we can do. So yeah, that was like absolutely crazy back in 2021. 2021 was like somewhat crazy, you know. Okay, so let's take a look at this game between Magnus Carlsen, the world champion back in 2021, and Nepomniachtchi, who apparently is not holding, is not representing a Russian flag. According to what I've heard, the WADA, I think it was like something I heard. Let me take a look. World Chess Championship 2021. According to what I've heard, Jan Nepomniachtchi is Russian, but competed under the Chess Federation of Russia flag due to WADA sanctions against Russia. So there's like some sort of sanctions due to WADA sanctions against Russia. FIDE confirmed that Nepomniachtchi would not compete under the Russian flag but would play as a neutral player. The sanctions only apply to the World Championship match, not to other FIDE events such as the Candidates Tournament. The Court of Arbitration for Sport upheld the ban on Russia competing at World Championships, and it is implemented by WADA in response to the state-sponsored doping program of Russian athletes. So yeah, instead of RUS flag, he holds the CFR flag. But since then, it was crazy. And then on 2023, let's just say that that Yana Pomyashi and other Russian chess players and Belarusian is competing under the FIDE flag due to the war. So we're not talking about it. Hopefully, don't bash me. Don't be mad at me. Because I'm just reading it. So yeah, there will be tons of variations, tons of it, and absolutely many moves. Okay, let's begin. Magnus begins with d4, and Nepo goes knight f6, then knight f3, d5, and g3. Usually, when I play, I downloaded it, and there's no like much explanation. But since this is the longest one, and it has its own article on Wikipedia, I am gonna read it. So after g3, with this move order, white aims for a Catalan-like setup, except the move c4 is delayed. This one, oh no, not there. This one was kind of delayed. Then e6, bishop g2, bishop e7, castles, b3. But white's point is to sidestep the main line with c4, which was played in the second game of the match. So yes, like I'd say about c4 that would work about b3 and c4. But sorry, I'd say like what if I take it? should I like? It's a book move after all because it's like a queen's gambit. But I'd probably go knight bd2. I'll go for that. I'll go for that. Going back to b3, the game continues with c5, d takes, and here Nepo is going to. Nepo starts the long one. Long way of this with bishop takes c5, which is a bad move according to the engine. And it's much. I don't think if that's smarter, but it's 11. Not, last one is 9, but yeah, I don't care. What if fix it with knight c6, bishop b2, bishop takes, c4, d takes, b takes, queen e7, knight e5, knight takes, and position is equal. I think I'm gonna take it because you have to exchange it in order not to lose a piece. And either way, you can go here. It's just fine that this bishop, that this pawn is safe because the king protects it. There's gonna be a long detour for the queen. He cannot go there because it's gonna take this, so he has to go somewhere over here. But he cannot just go there on c3 or b2 directly because that's an illegal move. So you have to go like somewhere over there. Going back to bishop takes c5, the game continues with c4, d takes, and queen c2. This move pinning the pawn c4, so he pins this piece, and probably he might as well go c5. I mean, yeah, b5, and then it could also go with this one and this one as well, or maybe you could go here, or there, somewhere over here, and can also probably go here as well. So it's not totally pinned like would you normally see on your chess games. So yeah, just wants to avoid the queen exchange because he just wants to like doesn't want here because to be honest it feels like too early. So going back, the game continues with queen e7 and knight bd2. Okay, which is what is this? Interesting move. And a knight c6, a good move. Finally, I just finally said it because thanks to the article. It's just the other one was like always putting question marks, and there's no exclamation point or something else. Yeah. White. So it says after the knight c6, white wants to sacrifice a pawn, but black does not. But black does not accept and goes for rapid development. So people are like gonna do like takes, but no, he just wants to develop this. So it would be sort of win-win. And this bishop, you can go on here and then start taking over on this. So white wants to sacrifice the pawn, but black does not accept and goes for rapid development, and continues with knight takes, b5, knight ce5, b4, knight b4 rather, and then queen b2, bishop b7, and a3. Alright, we're already in 9 minutes because yeah, we want to make it as long as we can. So a3 seems interesting, but a better one is bishop g5, rook ac8, knight g4. There's so many pressuring this piece right there, and then knight bd5, e4, bishop a3, queen e5, bishop d6, queen d4, bishop c5, and the position is equal. I'd say they're trying to draw this game, but I think what I've heard is players cannot agree on a draw after 40 moves. It could be permitted. A draw can be permitted if they just do triple repetition or stalemate. But that would be that. But that is a variation. So yeah. Back to a3. The game continues with knight c6, knight d3, bishop b6, and bishop g5. But a better one stating is a4, rook fd8, a takes, knight d4, knight takes, bishop takes g2, knight c6, and then bishop takes e6, b takes. Wow, that's a long way. I'd say, I think there's something I've missed out on. For this variation, he could have gone there because look at this pin. Yeah, I say it's pin, but you can just simply go here and then you can take it. It would make sense after all. Going back to bishop g5, the game continues with rook f d8, bishop takes g takes. Oh, g takes. Okay. There's an explanation saying black avoids a queen exchange, even though that would be fine. Yeah, queen takes f6 could be great and all, but at the same time, he doesn't have a choice. His king exposed on this g file anyway. But instead, just goes for g takes f6. So in a result, it would be fine. In a resulting endgame, white could claim a good knight on d3 versus a potentially bad bishop, but the black pieces are active and the bishop on b6 would be nicely placed. So yeah, the bishop on it's already nicely placed. It can go on here and here in this diagonal, something like that. Going back, there's rook ac1 and then knight d4, knight takes, bishop takes. Okay, so the position is equal. Queen e2, bishop takes, queen d7, king g1, queen e4, queen d2, a5, rook fd1, king g7, and rook d2. Stating that the batter is e3, rook ac8, queen takes, rook takes, queen f3, rook cc1, bishop c3, rook f1. Okay, now I understand. He cannot go on here because it's a bad idea. It's gonna lose the rook, and black is going to win if it happens. But I just don't understand. Giving up the queen, okay, but wins the exchange because that's 10/9. But the problem of losing a queen is you have a disadvantage of a piece not going up, down, left, right, diagonal, horizontal, vertical, diagonal, what I meant. Something like that. That's what I say about those. Yeah. Okay, let's continue. Back to rook d2. The game continues with... Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, we already read it. Okay, the game continues with rook ac8. Okay. And then he goes queen takes e8. But first, it could have been like b4 or black playing b4. It's like the same. So a takes, knight takes, bishop takes, king takes, queen takes, and then rook takes d8. And it's an equal position after all. Interesting enough, huh? Back to rook ac8. There's queen takes, rook takes. So makes an equal position. Queen d5, b4, a4, e3, and knight e5, which seems dubious. So yeah, I could say about that. Black could have gone for an easy draw with bishop to b2, rook c5. Oh no, no. Rook c5, queen d6, rook takes, queen takes, rook bc2, queen takes, and then rook takes b5. Yeah, it's somewhat drawish with 5 pawns for white and 5 pawns for black. That would definitely make sense. Back to knight e5, the game continues with h4, h5, king h2, and then bishop b2, which is a real bad move, according to what I've heard. It's not always like they just put a question mark on the text thing. Okay. So now the idea of putting the bishop on b2, which is a bailout option for black a couple of moves ago, suddenly loses. So maybe it's gonna go rook c5. Well, it happened. Rook c5 is actually the move. and then queen d6 and rook d1. Yeah, I just don't know about that, but rook d1 seems crazy, but there's actually a reason. So we could have fixed it with rook takes, queen takes, rook bc2, queen takes, rook takes f5, rook b6, queen to d3, rook bc6, and it's gonna be an equal position indeed. But under time pressure, Carlsen does not exploit the winning chance, which was hard to spot and calculate, and goes for a continuation which gives up a pawn. So therefore, he just he moves rook to d1 under time pressure. Yes, it was so pressuring. Like there's a big time. Like if you definitely run out of time, you lose. So rook takes rook. So it was like so there was a reason why he does rook d1. It was a time pressure. There's no increment at this move. It, so yeah. Going back, there's rook takes a3, rook takes d5, rook takes b5 rather, and then queen d7, rook c5, which is a bad move, but I think there's no variations for the game. Yeah. So e5 makes making black in a better position, and then continues with rook c2 and queen d5, which is a blunder. According to what I've heard, it's a blunder. Queen d5 is a blunder. Black had a couple of opportunities to capture the hanging b4 pawn before white connected his rooks. So it has like tries to like take this and try to go for the pass pawn right there, but no. White can first connect his rooks. So it happened with rook dd2 and queen b3, rook a2, and e4, which is another bad move for Nepomniachtchi. It could have fixed it with f5, rook a1, bishop takes, knight takes, queen takes, rook da2, f4, e takes, and e takes, and thus makes an equal position after all. And I'd probably say I'm gonna like take this one and then queen b2 would work, and then I think this one is safe, but yeah, I think I can go on here. If he takes it, I'm gonna take it here. And there's so many tons of it, but we're gonna figure out that sometime. Okay, back to e4. The game continues with knight c5, queen takes, and knight takes e4, which is another bad move for Magnus Carlsen, but the good news is Carlsen managed to survive the time trouble and get a promising position. So in this move, after knight takes e4, according to the time control, before we continue, there's actually a time control. Let's see. The regulations is the time control for each game was 2 hours per side for the first 40 moves, 1 hour for the next 20 moves, and 15 minutes for the rest of the game, with a 30-second increment per move starting with move 61. So, despite the mistake of Magnus Carlsen, his time actually increased by 1 hour because it's already move 40. So, which is a good one, which is a pro thing for Magnus Carlsen. So he survived the time trouble. His time added one extra hour. But however, Rook dc2 is a brilliant move. Or let's go back. Rook dc2 is a brilliant move. And then f5, knight takes, queen takes, rook c3, queen d1, rook c takes a3, f6, rook a7, and now white would have been a slight advantage, and it would have won the a4 pawn and resulted in a winning endgame. Look at this. Double pawn, isolated pawn, and the pawn chain of white, which is crazy. Back to knight takes e4, the game continues with queen b3, then that Nepomniachtchi's time also gets an extra 1 hour. So yeah. It could have been equal position after king g6, knight to d6, queen b3, um, knight b5, bishop c1, knight d4, queen b1, rook e2, a3, and yeah, it's an equal position after this. This pawn cannot be passed, something like that. And he has to do plans to get this one to be gone, probably. Back to queen b3, the game continues with rook a c2, bishop f8, knight c5, queen b5, knight d3, a3, which is an equal position, and then knight f4, queen a5, rook a2, bishop b4, which is an equal position, but that's an equal position after queen f5, rook a1, queen b5, rook da2, king h6, king g1, queen c4, knight e2, and bishop b4. It's an equal position. However, they have to be a little bit of trouble because their time isn't added by 30 seconds for now. Going back to bishop b4, the game continues with rook d3, king h6, rook d1, queen a4, rook da1, bishop d6, king g1, queen b3, knight e2, which is an equal position. Seems interesting. And then queen d3, knight to d4, king h7, king h2, and queen e4, which is a W's move according to what I've heard. Black chooses to give up his a pawn for white's h pawn, which will give him a difficult position to defend. The problem is, if he takes it, he's gonna do this. Big problem. And he's gonna take it and get back. That's like 9 and then over 8, so it'd probably be an equal position, but I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen, but yeah. So the game continues with, yeah, sacrificing. Magnus sacrificed the rook, but he doesn't do like this. I don't know why, but this is an encounter for, or this one as well. The rook and knight and a pawn is equal to a queen. So technically, it's an equal position, but it's gonna be a hard time for Magnus to win this game after he sacrificed that earlier. But he has plans. So after rook takes a3, queen check for Nepomniachtchi, and king g1, queen e4, rook a4, bishop e5, knight e2, queen c2, which is a bad move, but would have thought. Could have fixed it with queen d5, rook c1, bishop e2, rook e1, bishop e5, knight f4, queen b3, rook a7, and h4, which is an equal position indeed. I'd say about that, making this an equal position. Alright, back to queen c2. The game continues with rook 1 a2 and then queen b3, king g2. But a better one is king h2, king g6, knight f4, bishop takes g6, queen d5, rook c2, queen f3, and then, oh, it's not queen f5, queen f3, and then rook a1. This makes white in a slight advantage. It would make sense after all. So going back, king g2, queen d5 check, and then f3. This move weakens the e3 pawn, which is this, and gives black an opportunity to tie white's pieces to defending it. Yeah. So it's trying to make this as a defense, but e3 is weakened. No piece for now gets defended. So Isaiah is gonna like try to go queen d3. The game continues with queen d1, and then it's gonna be a long one. So f4, bishop c7, king f2, bishop b6, rook a1, queen b3, rook e4, king g7, rook e8, f5, rook aa8, queen b4, rook ac8, bishop a5, rook c1, bishop b6, rook e5, queen b3, rook e8, queen d5, rook c8, queen h1, rook c1, queen d5, rook b1, bishop a7, rook e7, bishop c5, rook e5, queen d3, queen b7, rook b7, queen c2, rook b5, bishop a7, rook a5, bishop b6, rook a b5, bishop a7, rook takes, queen d3, rook check, king takes, rook b7, king g6, and rook takes a7. Also, by the way, after f4, their time added by another 15 minutes, and this time, if they already have 30 seconds increment, so they can now be a little bit comfy about the 30-second increment. So rook takes a7. The rising position gives white the opportunity to steadily press for a victory without any risk, and is very unpleasant for black, although holdable with perfect defense. Nepomniachtchi manages to prevent further white progress for 28 moves. Ooh. Crazy enough. But they're just not gonna hope. They're just hoping that they're just hoping that they need to move the pawn or take a piece or a pawn in the next 50 moves, or else it's gonna be a draw after the draw by the 50 move rule. Okay, let's continue. Queen d5, rook a6, king h7, rook a1, king g6, knight d4, queen b7, rook a2, queen h1, rook a6, king f7, knight f3, queen b1, rook d6, king g7, rook d5, queen a2, check, rook d2, avoiding the fork because look at this. Queen a2 check. There's a fork right there, so rook d2 could fix it, and then queen b1, rook e2, queen b6, rook c2, queen b1, knight d4, queen h1, rook c7, king f6, rook c6, king f7, knight f3, queen b1, knight g5 check, and then king g7, knight e6, king f7, and knight d4. This time it's the 100th move. Knight d4 is the 100th move. And people are so, they're absolutely tired about by now. And then queen h1, rook c7, king f6, knight f3, queen b1, rook d7, queen b2, rook d2, queen b1, knight g1, queen b4, rook d1, queen b3, rook d6, king g7, rook d4, queen b2, knight e2, and queen b1. Finally, with a knight e2 and rook d4, protecting the king well. Yep, he cannot go here, but that's a check. This knight cannot be checked right there. White can make progress again by pushing the e-pawn, so it's probably like a path pawn right there, but the queen can still defend on this. And we're almost there, by the way. Okay, so the game continues with e4, queen h1, rook b7, king g8, rook d4, and queen h2, king e3, h4, g takes, queen h3, king d2, queen takes h4, rook d3, king f8, rook f3, queen d8, and king e3. Ooh. Carlsen said it was important to bring the knight to g3, so he has to go for this later on. Not now because black is in check. So let's see. The game continues with nope. Queen a5, king f2, and queen a7, which is another bad move for Nepomniachtchi. Could have fixed it with king e7, rook d3, queen h5, knight g3, queen g4, knight f5, king e8, rook f3, and then king e8. Oh shoot. King e8, rook f3, and king d8, which is an equal position for this game. I could say it would be a draw. Back to queen a7, the game continues with rook e3, and the recent developments give some hopes for white because putting his knight on g3 and the king on f3 allow him to push his connected pawns forward. Okay, let's continue. The game continues with queen d7, knight g3, queen d2, king f3, queen d1, rook e2, queen b3, king g2, queen b7, rook d2, and queen b3. But a better one is king e8, rook d3, queen b1, rook e3, queen c2, rook e2, queen c6, king f3, queen c3. And that makes white in a slight advantage. Interesting, right? So the game continues with queen b3 and then rook to d5, which makes white in a better position. After he gives Nepo a check. King f7, rook d5, queen c3, king h3, queen f3, rook f5, king e7, king h4, and queen g2. White is in a slight advantage. It makes sense after all. Back to rook d5, the game continues with king e7, rook e5, and king f7, which is another bad move for Nepomniachtchi. Yeah. Could have fixed it with king e7, rook d5, king e8, rook h5, king d8, king h3, queen f3, rook h4, king e7. That makes them in a slight advantage. Makes sense after all. Back to king f7, the game continues with rook f5, okay. But that's a better position for white after king h3, queen b1, rook f5, king e8, e5, queen f3, rook f6, king e7, king h4, queen f2. Yeah, I'd say about that with white having a better position right there. Back to rook f5, the game continues with king e8, e5, queen a2, king h3, and now black made the mistake with queen e6. This was the losing move according to the endgame table basis. Despite the rook gets pinned by the queen, but the knight defends it. And the queen should have remained behind the pawns in order to hold the position. Let's just say he can probably do queen c2 or queen b1. At the same time, he can also it can also defend. I can also attack the rook right there. Now all the white pieces have moved forward in a coordinated and decisive way. So back to queen e6. The game continues with king h4 and then queen h6, which is definitely collapsing for Nepomniachtchi. Could have fixed it with queen d5, knight h5, king e7, rook f6, queen to f3, king g5, queen g2, king h6, and queen f3, which white has a better position right there. Going back to knight h5, and then the game continues with queen h7. Another bad move for Nepomniachtchi. Could have fixed it with king e7, rook f6, queen h8, rook g6, queen e8, king g5, queen check, king h6, queen h2. Does make white winning. So after queen h7, white made a good move of e6, sacrificing the rook. But Magnus Carlsen had plans. The rook cannot be taken because of the royal fork with knight g7. Let's see what will happen. If he's going to take it, it's gonna be a check. It goes here. He's gonna take it. He's gonna take it back. He's gonna go there. May as well try to go there and knight h6. Let's see. Might as well like try to go here, but it's a lose-lose. Alrighty. White is going to win. And then if it goes here, I'm gonna go there. Boom, boom. And white is going to win with a queen. So back to queen g6. The game continues with rook f7, king d8, f5, queen g1. So it's a mate in 47. Wow, the engine is already so excited. After queen h6. So going back, knight g7 continues, and here, after knight g7, black could have prolonged the game with series of checks, but white's king would have found refuge on g8. With white's pawns close to promotion at the far end of the board, black resigned after 136 moves. Oh my goodness. Wow, and if the game would have been continued, it can go queen, knight g7 and queen h1, king g5, queen g1, king h5, queen h2, king g6, queen g1 again, and then king h7. So this queen can literally go right there, so can find refuge and eventually is going to promote there. Kind of makes sense. So yeah, that's absolutely crazy. Okay, let's see. Before we end, let's see how was the aftermath after this. Okay, let's take a look. Game 6. It took them. The game was played. I'm gonna bring the suspense if you haven't knew it yet. The game was played in 7 hours and 45 minutes, finishing after midnight local time. So I think they started around 3 p.m. Dubai time, and then they just played for 7 hours, almost 8 hours, and it just I don't know if it's 3 p.m. Because 3 plus 7 it's like 10 p.m. I don't know what time did they end on there. So 12:30 Gulf Standard Time is 4:30. So they started at 4:30 and then goes 4:30 Dubai time, 4:30, 5:30, 6:30, 7:30, 8:30, 9:30, 10:30, 11:30. They just really reached midnight. Oh my gosh. And both players literally got exhausted. Wow. They're so exhausted it definitely reached midnight. So the game plus was played in 7 hours and 45 minutes, finishing after midnight local time. Wow. It reached them midnight. I don't know if that happened also in 1978, but wow. That is absolutely crazy. It definitely reached them to a midnight. Around it's 4:30 and it's 4:30 p.m. It ends up it's like 12:15 a.m. on their time. I don't know what to say. If it's 12 a.m. If I would have been like streaming if I would have been like streaming the World Championship straight from my home, let's see, 12 a.m. or 12:15. I would have been so exhausted. The time says 4:15 a.m. So in my local time it's 12:15 a.m. They started at 4:30 p.m. So that's 8:30 p.m. on my local time, and they ended up. If I would have been streaming, they ended with 4:15 a.m. So it's definitely a whole night, an entire night that I would have been streaming. If I would have been streaming, but I would definitely stream World Championship between Ring and Bukesh. Hopefully they won't take that long. Wow, that is absolutely crazy. So, what happened after this? After this, Magnus Carlsen leads the series 3.5 to 2.5 in the best of 14 match. It was the first classical game in a World Chess Championship in more than 5 years that did not end in a draw, after Magnus Carlsen won the 10th game of the World Chess Championship 2016 against Sergei Karyakin to level the score. There was the longest ever streak of 19 draws on consecutive World Chess Championship classical games. So that's games 11 to 12 in 2016, all the games from 1 to 12 in 2018, and games 1 to 5 in 2021. The game was widely praised, with chess players and commentators describing it as epic and an all-time classic. Wow. So after this, the game proved to be the turning point in the match. After the loss, Nepomniachtchi's play declined significantly from being on par with Carlsen to highly error-prone, with Carlsen ultimately retaining his title by 7.5 to 3.5. That was absolutely crazy. So let's see the aftermath. Game 6 ended up being a turning point in the match. Nepomniachtchi had played solidly with 5 draws in the first 5 games. However, after this Game 6 loss, he made blunders in 3 of the remaining games and eventually lost the match 7.5 to 3.5. 538 mentioned that it was the most lopsided championship in recent memory, while calling Game 6 an instant classic. After taking the lead in the match as a result of his win in Game 6, Carlsen went on to win the 8th game of the match, the next one he played as white, as Nepomniachtchi blundered a pawn with d5 and ended up in a desperate position. Following the game, Carlsen called on the 6th game to explain his opponent's blunder and said, "To be honest, this second win probably doesn't come without the first, so everything is kind of connected." The match continued one-sidedly, as Carlsen followed up with 2 other wins on the 9th and 11th games, both of which he played as black, again capitalizing on his opponent's blunder in each of them. After Carlsen's 3rd win in Game 9, former world champion Vishwanathan Anand noted that in the first 5 games, Jan was able to match up to this and cope pretty well, but in Game 6 it seemed that psychologically he collapsed first and Magnus has been rampaging after that. Ultimately, Carlsen won the match by a final score of 7.5 to 3.5, winning 4 games, drawing 7 and losing none, to claim his 5th World Chess Championship title and his last, as of now. Because he just gave up the title due to lack of motivation in 2023. The New Yorker praised Carlsen's play, watching Carlsen in his World Championship though, he struck me as more superhuman than ever, not only for his vision over the board but for his mental stamina. Game 6 had been as even as possible, and yet he had turned it into a series of cascading advantages. As Carlsen made steady calculated moves, Nepomniachtchi seemed to unravel. In an interview immediately after retaining the title, Carlsen said, "But we really shouldn't forget the fact that this match really turned on the 6th game." Wow. This is definitely crazy. There's like so many of it. Wow. Alright. It's a long 40 minutes since here, the countdown to PD 100. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe and become a patron. Remember, patreon.com/Paul POW. And yes, we're gonna go for the last 3. At the countdown to PD 100, we're just less than 72 hours away, and I'm so excited. And don't forget to play as many games as you can on either chess.com, Leeches, or PD Online Arena, or you can play any tournament near you by finding at 100.pd.com/GWR. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow for another day of the countdown to PD 100 because I'm already exhausted on this 40-minute talk.